Right, good morning, everybody. Welcome to... I'll switch the sound off my computer. Right, welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Planning Committee of the 6th of April 2023. If anyone's got their mobile phone with them, which I presume most people will, could you ensure that they're at least on silent and, if possible, on airplane mode? I'd like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live on the internet and will be available for repeated viewing for 12 months. If you're seated in this room, you are deemed to be consented to being filmed, and any contributions to the meeting will be recorded and broadcast. Do you get that in the public bit? Yeah, okay. Thank you. Right, we'll go first on to apologies, please.
We've received apologies from Councillor Afsar, Councillor Pritchard, Councillor Waring and Councillor Francis.
And just to confirm, we're core to that.
Yes.
Thank you. Before we go any further, I'd like if members would please stand in a second for 1 minute. Ian Lawson was an honest, interested member of this committee and attended often, and besides that he was a lovely man. So 1 minute please. Well, don't stand, we'll just have 1 minute, please. Please have silence. Thank you. Thank you. And wherever you are, Ian, I'm sure you're watching what's going on. On a happier note, could I welcome Caroline Trowbridge? She has got some limited experience on the borough on planning. I don't know how long you've been on Stafford Borough, but welcome to the committee. It's obviously completely different agenda. But you will enjoy it. Thank you. And we'll move on, please, to item number 2, which is declarations of interest in accordance with Standing Order number 16. Have we got any declarations of interest? Johnny?
My division is adjacent to, but not immediately associated with the anaerobic digester.
Thank you.
As Johnny's done that, mine, the actual site is on the Junction of 4 division, so I'll I am also sit on the panel there as an outside body.
Thank you for that. And Mike, do you want to say anything? No. Just finish the Carrick lot. Thank you. Right, we'll move on to minutes of the 1st of December 2022. Have you all had a chance to read them? Are you happy with them?
Move it, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. We'll sign them off. Kirsty. Thank you. And we'll start with applications for permission with application 4A, which is by Wood Farm Golf and Leisure Limited on land off Bursnips Road, Essington. And I presume David's taking this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. I'll give some background to the application first. It's a planning application that relates to a golf course in Essington. Planning permission was granted by South Staffs Council in 2008 for the development of a nine-hole golf course and also the importation of waste. Planning permission was then granted by the County Council in 2016 for the importation of inert waste to facilitate an extension to that golf course. Planning permission was also granted at roughly the same time by South Staffs for the change of use to allow the use of the land as a golf course. The location is shown on the red star on the map and also in Plan 1 of the report. The site is 450 metres northeast of Essington and is located between Broad Lane and Bursnips Road, and the site is in the South Staffs Greenbelt. So got the red star there and Essington is there. The planning application boundary is shown in red on the slide. The golf course granted by South Staffs Council is to the north of this site. So you can just see the area there. That's the area that planning permission was granted by South Staffs. The nearest residential properties are Rose Cottage, which is located near to the site entrance, which is on the slide there, and also Rycroft and North Barn, located between the access and the proposal area. Moving on to the proposal itself. This application is seeking additional time to allow the completion of the golf course, the importation of waste and topsoil, which should have ceased in 2021. Over 400,000 tonnes of inert waste and topsoil was required to achieve the landform that was the original application. The applicant estimates that a total of 129,000 tonnes of waste and topsoil is still required. No other changes are proposed. No additional inert waste or topsoil is required, and the final landform has not changed. I've got a couple of slides now just to show you what's happened on site. So you can see there that the work is carried on at the site with the importation of the waste material. No objections from technical consultees were received, and their comments are summarised in the report. Essington Parish Council have objected, and this is summarised in paragraphs 29. 3 objections have also been received, and these are summarised in paragraph 33 of the report. Paragraphs 40 to 90 of the committee report covers the key issues, and I'll go through the main points. The principle of waste importation and of inert waste and topsoil was established in 2016, and it's important to consider the effects of the changes to the development plan, the site and the surrounding area. The site continues to operate, and there have been no significant changes in the vicinity of the site. The development plan has been updated, and this is detailed in Appendix 1 of the report. The National Planning Policy Framework, National Planning Policy for Waste, Planning Practice Guidance, Waste Local Plan and South Staffs Local Plan are all relevant to this application. The National Planning Policy Framework is under review, and the proposed changes are not considered relevant to this application. A review of the South Staffs Local Plan has been paused at the moment. As I said, the additional time would allow the waste landform to be completed. It is considered that the planning benefits of the proposal outweigh the planning objections, and the proposal is acceptable in principle, subject to site-specific considerations, which I'll now go through. As I mentioned, the site is in the Greenbelt, and policy seeks to ensure that consideration is given to the impact of any development in the Greenbelt, and that substantial weight is given to any harm to the Greenbelt. Paragraphs 47 to 58 of the report provides the Greenbelt policy context. In this case, it is considered that the proposal would harm the openness of the Greenbelt and would represent inappropriate development. As with the previous application at the site, it is considered that very special circumstances exist to justify the departure from Greenbelt policies. Certain developments need to be referred to the Secretary of State before planning permission is issued. Given the scale, the nature and the location of this site, it is not considered necessary with this application. Moving on to the other matters raised in the representations, concern has been raised about the duration of development, traffic and highways safety associated with the operations, and also site monitoring. The Parish Council and residents have raised concerns about the time taken to import the waste and topsoil and for the golf course to be operational. The applicant has indicated there have been a number of constraints that have impacted the site from being operated at maximum speed and capacity. These include Brexit, the pandemic, and other landfill operations, and the cessation date does depend on the amount of waste going through, coming through the site, through the gates. Your officers have sought clarification whether the importation of inert waste and topsoil could be achieved in a shorter timescale. The applicant has confirmed they do not know how much waste will be brought into the site. Your officers have also requested and received plans showing the fill and the landscaping commitments to ensure that the proposals were comprehensive, detailed, practicable, achievable within the proposed timescales. Based on the plans and the timescale submitted, it's considered that the additional time would allow the approved landform to be achieved. The applicant has also indicated that options are being considered to enable public access to the course, and the Parish Council will be engaged to see how the facilities could be used. The parish and residents are concerned about heavy goods vehicles travelling through Essington and the use of Bognor Road, which has a weight restriction. No changes are proposed to the vehicle numbers. Conditions were included on the original planning permission, which restricts vehicle numbers in terms of, I think it's 40 per hour, and also to require the provision and use of a wheel wash, and to ensure that no vehicles leave the site in a condition whereby mud is deposited on the highway. Highways Development Control have no objection. The applicants explained that there are other operations close to the site, and vehicles may be travelling to and from these competing sites in the immediate area. The enforcement of the weight restriction is a matter for the Staffordshire Police. However, an informative is recommended to advise drivers of HGVs that Bognor Road should not be used. It is reasonable to conclude that the proposed development would not give rise to any material harmful impacts in terms of highway safety, subject to conditions and informative. In terms of the day-to-day operation, this is controlled by the Environment Agency, who have not objected. The County Council's planning regulation team also monitor the site, and they have confirmed that site visits have taken place and no enforcement action has been taken. Planning practice guidance indicates that planning authorities can impose new conditions provided the conditions do not materially affect or alter the development. It is considered reasonable and necessary to update the planning conditions. Paragraph 89 provides examples of the conditions to minimise the impact of the waste development. It is considered that the proposed development is acceptable. The recommendation is therefore that Planning Committee approve the proposal subject to conditions and informatives included in the report. Thank you, Chairman. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, David. Right, we have no objector speaking on this. We have a Parish Council representative, Christopher Steele. Would you like to come forwards, please, and make your representation? Are you okay with the microphone?
Yeah, fine, thanks.
Right. And you have 5 minutes once you've switched your microphone on.
On behalf of the residents of Essington, thank you, Chair and members, for this opportunity to speak at this planning committee. In broad terms, reluctantly, we are not intending to oppose the recommendation to approve subject to various conditions. However, we would like to make the following comments. The date of the 15th of May 2024 for the cessation of the importation of inert waste should be strictly adhered to, and under no circumstances should it be allowed to overrun. This seems rather generous when one considers that under the granting of planning permission for Phase 2, this should have ceased on the 14th of May 2021 anyway. Assuming a few more years to seed, plant out, etc. to complete Phase 2, and that would be a total of a full virtually 20 years to actually open the golf course. A far cry from the original promises of a course up and running in 2 to 3 years. As one resident has commented, HS2 will probably be operational before this golf course. It wasn't me, by the way. The first 9 holes for Phase 1 is still not open to the public, some 15 years on from the original granting of planning permission in 2008. Also, we are somewhat perplexed at clause 18 in the applicant's case, which basically says, the applicant has explained that if the existing golf course were to be opened, the same roadway serving Phase 2 would be used, and there would be a mixing of visitors using the golf course, their vehicles, with waste delivery lorries, creating a danger. We were under the impression that condition 15 of the 1514-6012 catered for this, with a separate entrance being formed. And we also note that this is referred again in clause 11 accompanying the recommendation to permit the extension to 15th of May 2024. As the site is in the green belt, according to the NPPF, in order to allow inappropriate development, one has to demonstrate, and inverted commas, very special circumstances. And surely, the reason to import inert waste and form a golf course is for it to eventually operate as a golf course. Otherwise, surely the very special circumstances do not exist. The other main area of concern is the amount of HGVs coming through the centre of the village of Essington. The narrowest part of the road network in Essington is directly opposite the main entrance to the local St John's Primary Academy. I myself have witnessed HGVs mounting the curbs in extremely close proximity to children and parents. So I'm asking, is there any way we can restrict the HGVs to using the route past the school, let us say between 9 AM and 3 PM, that still gives 6 hours, in order to avoid the busiest times in the vicinity of the school? However, a much better solution for the residents of Essington would be a condition restricting access to the site via A roads only. That's me finished, thank you.
Thank you very much. We have no speaker as a supporter, but there's 2 local members, Councillor Bernard Williams and Councillor Perry. I understand that Councillor Perry, there you are. Can you hear us, Kath?
Yes, I can, Chairman, thank you.
Oh, we can hear you.
Sorry, I'm not shouting.
Would you like to make your presentation?
Thank you very much, Chairman. As one of the local representatives for this division, first I'd like to thank you, Chairman, the Chairman of the Planning Committee, for allowing me the opportunity to speak on this issue. I also apologise that I'm unable to be present on this occasion. I'd also like to thank the officers for such a clear and comprehensive report on the subject, which leads me to the following observations. I understand that to refuse the application, as has just been said, would not be beneficial to any of the parties involved in this project, and I include the residents of Essington in this comment. However, I do feel that there has to be some sort of mechanism put in place whereby this application to extend the terms of Condition 4 can be regarded as absolutely the last extension to be associated with planning consent. Should a need arise in the future where yet another extension is required, it should form the basis of a completely new planning application. The residents of Essington have been very patient awaiting this facility, as you've just heard the chairman of the parish council say. We're all promised in 2008, and I do feel that now would be the time to at least give the residents a date when they can expect this facility to actually open for all to enjoy. Can I ask, is the date something which the developer are willing to share at this point? And if not, is there a reason which we need to be made aware of? I haven't got anything else further to say, Chairman, only to support what's just been said by the parish chairman. But I do think the residents have been very patient on this, and something needs to be sorted. But as I said, it's not beneficial to reject this application. So I'll leave it to the members now to discuss it. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Kath. We will take on board all that you've said.
Thank you.
Thank you. We've got no other speakers, so we'll throw it open to members. Any comments, members? Paul?
Thank you, Chair. David, excellent report, but then I'm going to say but. I've heard what's been said by the local people and the chairman of Essington Parish Council. I've heard what the local member, Councillor Kath Perry, said, and just a few observations. No objection by the environment, no objection by highways, or even by our officers, but probably none of them live in Essington or have to put up with it. I'm sorry. 2009, it can be 3 years. 2012, that's 11 years ago. Yet we're giving them more time. I know it's going to go through today, but I don't want the people who are doing all this to think that in 2 years' time they come back, oh, we'll do it again, we'll do it again. So for that reason, I'm saying we throw it out. I know it won't be thrown out because I think the members probably will take officer's recommendation. But I've never wanted to sit here and just go along with the rest. So for that reason, I'm going to propose that the matter be not accepted. We go against officer's recommendation and no extra time be given. I've heard what Kath has said, and it may not be beneficial for the people of the village, but that is still my gut feeling. Would I like to live in Essington and have this going on for 14 years, the threat of it all just carried on, perhaps another 14 years? These people have made promises on many occasions and not kept them. So how can we now believe that in 2 years' time it will all be finished? And that is my views, Chair.
Thank you. Johnny?
Instinctively, I have some sympathy with Paul's position because it has been going on for an extremely long time. However, it would seem eccentric for the villagers to have gone through all this difficulty for so long and not get the best out of it. And therefore, to have the extended golf course and done properly, opening in 2024, I think is worth the extra few months. And so my feeling is that we should accept it, but that we really need to make perfectly clear that we don't expect to see them here again for a further extension. It must be done.
Carolyn?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I'm new to this committee, may I ask a question? Is it possible to put an end time on? Because I don't know how we can put pressure on developments to be finished in a certain time. Would they know if they're going to get the soil in? Would they know if they're going to get the workmen available? I just would like a bit of guidance from one of the officers on, is there a way to do an end time?
Before we go to the officers, could I ask David to speak?
Chairman, can I just... I think as a committee we're going to have continuous problems on the availability of waste materials to go into the quarries for the completion of the reclamation of quarries. this is, to a degree, the difficulty of obtaining the volume of waste that's needed, suitable waste to be able to complete the development. And I think we're going to have this problem across many, many quarries that won't be able to complete in the times we have set them. And so I think this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to have a lot more of these. So I really would move acceptance of the application.
Philip?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I have sympathy and with Councillor Snape's words that he said, and I see where he's coming from. But then I look at, I mean, I'm not from Essington, but I do represent a rural area of Staffordshire. And my concern is, I mean, okay, so we've only got 12 months really extension. So it's not 2 years, it's 12 months. So, but if we don't agree today to give that extension, and if subsequently they don't get the landfill done in 12 months' time, what will happen to that land? And, you know, I think that we need to support this application today, and we need to be mindful that it might come back to us in 12 months' time. And I'm sorry for the residents of Essington, but I think the bigger picture is you know, what will happen to this land? We've waited so long now. When we're near the end, perhaps we should give this company the chance to prove what they said they were going to do, and let's hope that they do. But I think that if it comes back in 12 months' time, we need to perhaps look at it in a different light. But we have to give them the opportunity to do it, because it so worries me about environment that what will happen to this land if we now don't complete what we've started. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah, I have sympathy with Councillor Snape on this one. Putting in context, I wasn't old enough to stand for this council when this application started. So it's been a rather long time, and I don't, the excuses list of Brexit, pandemic, no. It's been long enough. I actually have been to Essington quite a few times because I spend a lot of time on the West Midlands boundary. So I know that residents are not exactly happy with this application. But I also think that we have to get this over, and that we have to deliver something here. And I'd also support the fact that we have to have a time limit, because I think it's been long enough. I think that the longer this goes on, the more and more I get suspicious about the intentions of the application. I think that this is an application that should have been done a long time ago. I think that we need to hold conditions. Sadly, I think we will have to permit this until the next one. But I think at the next meeting, we need to seriously consider whether the application is ever going to be doing it. And that's what I've got to say on that one.
Thank you, Tom. Richard?
Thank you, Chairman. I understand the concerns of residents, but obviously it's clear that residents have concerns, but not necessarily putting in objections that would say that we should be making a decision to refuse, which I think would be the wrong decision, in the sense that actually, are you then, if you're refusing it, prolonging the whole situation further than actually 2 years even? So I worry about that. I was wondering, in terms of the point that Kath Parry made, was that in time, perhaps if they don't get to the point that they do, with an extension, that they do not finish and they apply for an extra time, in the opinion was that perhaps a full application is submitted as fresh. I'd like clarification on that, because I'm not too sure I would see any benefit from that. Again, it could probably delay things, and so I'm very mindful to agree that we should be approving this application. I think the blight has been long enough. The blight will continue if we possibly delay it even further, and whether there's a right from the applicant for a non-determination on this particular application. You know, we could lose control of it where we do have control at the present moment.
Mike?
I think the real comment that I wanted to make has actually been made, Chairman. For me, I think we're at a point of almost no return. I think it's right that we pass this today. However, and there's for me, I'm interpreting maybe communication is not good between the developer and local residents. We do need an end date. And for me, again, going back to Councillor Kath Perry, she made the point, when do we say no to extensions? So for me, if this is in our remit today, we could press the applicant to make him or them aware that if they come back, we want a new application. But I genuinely hope that we're on the final run-in to completion, because it is a long, long time. We're almost over a decade out. Thank you, Chair.
Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Can I ask office, are we allowed to do that? Is that in our power to put a condition that if it comes back again in 12 months, whatever it is, that it has to be a new application?
Right, I'm going to go to the officers in a second. Just very quickly for me, my question is supporting the parish council. Is there any conditions or further conditions to cover the travel of HGVs through Essington? I think there's some concern about the school in particular. You've got a range of questions there. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just pick up on the point that's been made a number of times about the need for a fresh application if they don't complete by May 2024. Well, this is a fresh application. Now, they would have to apply again, exactly the same in the future. That's what they would have to do. It would be a Section 73 application. That's to vary the permission, the condition that specifies the end date at the moment. They would apply again. You've seen from the evidence that we've obtained that they have made progress. You've seen that phase 1 is already constructed and is sort of maturing as a golf course. It hasn't been open to the public. Partly the reason has been explained is that it's a shared access, so the lorries are driving in through the same access. I think the other factor probably at play here is that it would need a clubhouse to support the golf course, and a clubhouse costs money. They have permission to build a clubhouse, but they haven't built it yet. I think David's found out, he's seen in the recent past that the golf course has been put up for sale. So obviously I think it's obvious they want, from my point of view, that they want to finish the job. They want to market it and put it for sale. So, you would have thought the first 9 holes, will have reached a standard pretty soon where it can be played. And then if somebody buys it that then wants to invest and build a clubhouse, and then the second half comes along, matures and what have you. So, you can also see that they have got material in. They've got about 130,000 tonnes to go. The finish line, you might say, is in sight. There are issues with, as being pointed out, with competition from other sites in the area to get material. It relies on the economy generating that material from development going on, those sorts of things, and there are competing sites. So all these factors come to play. There is an end date. There's a possibility that they might not achieve that end date. We've got information, we've got plans to show a programme so we can monitor progress and we can keep that under review. If they don't achieve it, then obviously we would be asking for an application. We'd ask them to find out how much more time they need. If they don't achieve it, we'd hope it would be close. If it's not, then obviously the committee would have an opportunity, if it comes to committee, to review that and say, no, enough's enough, or can the plans be changed to modify the need for material. So all of those things put together is why, as has been pointed out, we're near the finish line, but and why we feel it's, we want to recommend approval to get the job done. And they would, in any event, require a fresh application if they wanted more time, in the same way that this application has been submitted and dealt with. So there would be an opportunity to consider that at that time. As far as the traffic concerns go, we've had no objections from highways. We've not particularly had objections specifically that have been mentioned today. These are fairly new, mentioning the school and what have you, that haven't really come to our attention before. There are competing sites, there are lorries in this area, lots of lorries in this area anyway, so distinguishing between the lorries going to this site and another site that could all be passing that school, you know, so we haven't got anything, we're not recommending anything specifically on this because it hasn't really been brought to our attention before now. I think that's right, David, isn't it? So
We've wanted about reminding them about the HGV route.
there is a route.
Well, no, the weight restrictions.
Yeah, there are weight restrictions in the area, and one of the informatives we've put in the that's in the permission reminds them of that. Obviously, that's a police matter if the lorries don't comply with those weight restrictions, but there are existing restrictions in the area on lorries that control all lorries in the area. So, Chairman, I hope that's of some assistance.
Thank you. I think it's one for Essington Parish Council to pursue their local member on. Is there any other comments to be made? Jack.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to echo the words of other councillors here, and the parish councillor, and although I will accept this today, I'm unlikely to accept any further extensions in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, we've had a proposal from Councillor Snape to refuse. We haven't had a seconder. We've had a proposal from Councillor Smith to pass it, to go through the agree with the officer's recommendations. We haven't had a seconder. So can we have Johnny McMahon as a seconder on this one then? This is to pass. Okay, thank you. Could all those who agree with the officer's recommendation on this application, please show hands, please. So that's however many in agreement.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
7 in agreement, and 8, and myself 9, and those against just 1. So we'll go with the officer's recommendation on that one. Thank you all very much for informed discussion. And we'll move to item 4B, please. And this is an application by Biffa Waste Services Limited at the Populous landfill site. And it's the anaerobic digestion facility on Litchfield Road at Cannock. This is you again, David. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. The AD facility at Poplars was first granted planning permission in 2010. The latest permission was granted later on in 2014. The facility accepts food waste, which is broken down in the absence of oxygen to produce biogas used to generate electricity and digestate. The application is to amend the existing planning permission, and it's detailed on the slides, and I'll go through the conditions in a minute or two. Due to the nature of the application, it's considered appropriate for the planning committee to make a decision on this application. The facility is located in Cannock and is shown on the red star on the slide, and the site is in the South Staffs Greenbelt. The M6 toll is to the south of the site, so obviously the red star there. The site boundary is shown in red on this slide. The landfill site is edged blue, and the household waste recycling centre run by the County Council is to the north of the AD facility. So we've got the AD facility there where the red dot is, then you've got the County Council household waste site, and obviously the larger landfill site there. The entrance to the site is off the A5190 Litchfield Road and the A460 Eastern Way roundabout, which is just there. The report details the residential, business and commercial uses nearby, including the houses to the north, which is there. The West Midlands designer outlet and Kingswood Lakeside. So we've got the West Midlands outlet there and the Kingswood Lakeside business area there. Moving on to the proposal, there are 4 different parts to it. The applicant is proposing to change the site layout, including the construction of an additional digester tank. The tank would be located next to the existing tanks and would measure 90 metres in height. The tank is required to ensure that the operating capacity can be maintained during periods of maintenance. Coolers located adjacent to the main building would be relocated near to the digester tanks, and this is also to ease maintenance. A large gas container would be installed in the same location as an existing container, and would measure 11 metres in height. I've included a plan which I'll go on to, which will show the features I've just described, and that'll be on the next couple of slides. So the second part to the application is the AD plant is a temporary facility and a link to the operational landfill site. The applicant wants the AD facility to be a permanent facility, including the existing buildings. Moving on to the third of the points there, the applicant has confirmed that a liquid-like farms slurry is produced, which is a digestate, and this would be exported from the site for use as a soil enhancer on agricultural land. The last point there is a revised surface water management drainage scheme. It's been submitted, which reflects the changes to the site layout. So this is the existing site layout with the red line and the household waste site next to it there. So this is the amended layout that's been proposed by the applicant. So we've got the gas container there, the digester tank, which is next to the other tanks there, and the coolers, which is in that location there. So this gives members an idea of the elevations of the site. So the top elevation is the existing with the gas container there, and then you've got the proposed one of the proposed elevations, and that's the gas container. The third is the existing one of the existing layouts elevations, and then you've got the digester tanks next to it. So this is a photo of the anaerobic digestion facility as it is. This was taken from the landfill site across towards the houses in the distance there. We've got the landscaping along the boundary there, and you've just got the household waste site there. So this gives an idea of where the digester tank is, or would be, sorry. So I'll go back. So that's the location just there, next to the others. And I mentioned the gas container, which is that balloon shape. So the proposal is to replace that with a slightly bigger container. But as you can see from the slide there, you've got the large reception building next to it, and that's the gas balloon, gas container there. No objections have been raised by technical consultees, as reported in paragraphs 32 to 46 of the report. No representations have been received. Councillor Thompson has stated that who's a local member, has stated that it would be good for the AD facility to have the same end date as the rest of the site, and has raised concerns relating to the safety of the facility following the cessation of landfilling and the restoration of the site, including access and also the odours when the operator cleans the AD facility. Moving on to the key issues, these are covered in paragraphs 52 to 127 of the report, and I'll now go through the main ones. The current operations are carried out in accordance with the 2014 permission, and as with the previous application, it's important to consider the effects of the changes up to the development plan, the site and the surroundings. The site continues to operate, and the development plan has been updated, as I mentioned in the previous presentation. The benefits of the proposal are that they would allow the continuation of the treatment of the organic waste and the generation of electricity and digestate. The changes to the facility will not move the facility closer to residential properties or closer to existing employment land or closer to land which has been potentially allocated for future housing in a Cannock Chase local plan. It's considered that the planning benefits of the proposal outweigh the planning objections, and the proposal acceptable in principle, subject to the site-specific considerations, and I'll now go through. As I mentioned earlier, the AD facility is in the green belt, and the policy seeks to ensure that consideration is given to the impact of the development in the green belt, as I mentioned in the previous presentation. Paragraphs 73 to 88 of the report provides Greenbelt policy context, including in relation to the previous application to the site. The proposals would harm the openness of the Greenbelt and would represent inappropriate development. It's considered that very special circumstances exist to justify a departure from the Greenbelt policies. These are detailed in paragraphs 83 of the report, and Cannock Chase have no objection to the application. In my previous presentation, I indicated that certain inappropriate developments in the Greenbelt need to be referred to the Secretary of State. Due to the scale, nature and location, it is considered that the County Council should refer the decision to the Secretary of State before issuing a decision. The date of the removal of the AD facility is currently linked to the operation of the landfill site, and the current planning permission has no prescribed end date. The cessation would be when the landform has been completed. A planning application was considered at the December Planning Committee to vary the landfill permission. The committee accepted the recommendation to permit subject to a 106 agreement. This application included the confirmation of the end date for the landfilling and restoration, which will be 19 years. This permission has not yet been issued. The 106 hasn't been signed. When the application was originally considered, the AD in 2019, it was considered that the AD facility should be temporary and linked to the lifetime of the landfill site. The applicant has stated that the AD facility should be retained as it is a strategically important landfill site, treating organic waste that will be landfilled or transported over significant distances for treatment at alternative facilities, and would also generate energy from a renewable source, reducing reliance on fossil fuels, and replacement capacity would not be needed elsewhere. The applicant concludes that the retention of the AD facility and the proposed amendments to the existing site infrastructure would have negligible impacts beyond those already experienced and previously assessed. The AD facility provides a large-scale facility for the treatment of up to 120,000 tonnes of food waste. It is a strategic facility in Staffordshire and the wider West Midlands area. The facility is ideally placed given its capacity, location and transportation links for the treatment of food waste. The Environment Agency and Cannock Chase have no objections to the retention of the facility. A condition is recommended if the operations of the AD facility permanently ceases, then it should be removed. It is considered that the planning benefits of the retention of the AD facility beyond the lifetime of the landfill site would outweigh the material planning objections subject to conditions. Planning policies detailed in the report seek to ensure that developments are high quality and should not give rise to material harmful impacts, except where material planning benefits outweigh the material planning objections. The proposed changes to the AD facility are within the existing operational area, would be similar and compatible with the existing infrastructure, and would be screened by the existing landscaping. The County Council's Environmental Advice Team and Cannock Chase District Council have no objection. It's considered appropriate to include similar conditions to the existing to ensure no additional buildings are installed, that redundant vehicles are not stored on site, and to ensure the maintenance of the facility and that the new structures are similar to the existing. The County Council's Flood Risk Management Team initially objected to the application and requested additional information. An updated surface water management scheme was submitted, and Flood Risk Management Team confirmed they have no objection. A condition is included to ensure the implementation of the details included in the new scheme. As I mentioned in the previous presentation, it's necessary to update planning conditions and include additional conditions. Paragraph 126 provide examples of conditions to minimise the impact of the waste development, and ensure the operation of the AD facility to high environmental standards. The proposal accords with the development plan and represents sustainable development, and there are no clear, convincing reasons why the permission should not be permitted. The recommendation is minded to permit, subject to consultation with the Secretary of State and subject to conditions and the informatives listed on the report. Thank you, Chairman. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, David. We've got no speaker as an objector. We have no speaker as a parish council representation. We do have a speaker supporting the application, and that's Mary Tappenden. Would you like to come forwards, please? Are you okay with the microphone? Okay. When you've switched it on, you've got 5 minutes. Thank you.
So good morning, everybody. My name's Mary Tappenden. I'm Planning Manager for Biffa Waste Services. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to speak this morning. Mr. Bray's already given you a detailed account of the application, and I just have a few points to make on behalf of Biffa. So the Poplars AD plant is the largest AD plant in the West Midlands region, and it's one of the largest nationally. The plant commenced commercial operation in April 2011, and it processes up to 120,000 tonnes of segregated food waste every year. The facility is the largest of 4 plants that Biffa currently operates across the country. So we have 3 other facilities in West Sussex, Leicestershire and Somerset. That network of sites, and the Poplars site in particular, with its central location, allows us to provide a valuable service to both our local authority customers and also our business and commercial customers, both nationally and regionally. The byproducts of the AD process are a digestate material, which is basically a fertiliser that's exported for use on agricultural land, and a biogas, which consists primarily of methane, which is used to generate electricity. So the site generates 6.5 megawatts of electricity, with 6 megawatts exported to the national grid. The other half is used to power the plant. The adjacent landfill site, it's important to note, also generates 6 megawatts. So overall, the Poplars facility is exporting 12 megawatts of electricity, and that is actually more than enough to power the whole of Cannock and most of Cannock district. So the plant is very important as a source of power as well. So we're seeking to make a number of design changes, principally because the plant has been operational, as I say, since 2011, so it's the right thing to do. The most significant change is to add a 6th digester. And I would stress that this doesn't mean we're seeking to increase the size of the plant. The throughput will continue to be controlled through the planning and through the environmental permit at 120,000 tonnes per annum. All the new tank does is it improves the efficiency of the plant and the biogas production, and it enables us to move the process between tanks so that we can maintain the plant without taking it offline. So speaking more generally, the UK generates 19 million tonnes of food waste each year, and nearly half of that is from the food production sector, so it's an enormous amount. Much of the food waste currently is unsegregated, goes in with residual waste and is deposited into landfill sites, or at best goes through energy from waste plants. Whilst many landfill sites recover methane and generate electricity, and obviously energy from waste is better than landfill, this is still not the most efficient way or the most sustainable way to deal with food waste. The government is very supportive of AD for dealing with food waste, and the 2021 Waste Management Plan for England includes 5 strategic ambitions, one of which is to work towards eliminating food waste from landfill by 2030, and that's only 7 years away. So, surprisingly. The application is looking to secure the future of the Poplars plant. So the 2021 Environment Act sets out that local waste collection authorities, within the next 2 years, will be required to provide separate weekly food collections from households. This waste will need a home, and Biffa is currently working on a county-wide treatment solution that we can offer to the Staffordshire districts to use the Poplars plant to process their segregated food waste. You might already know that we service Newcastle-under-Lyme and take their food waste already. So our business customers similarly will also be caught by the new requirement to separate food waste, and our hope is that this will in the first instance result in a reduction of the amount of food waste produced in the first place, and we already work with many of our national customers to reduce their waste arisings and to make sure that unavoidable wastes are recycled or used in energy recovery ahead of landfill. So the Environment Act will mean that the need for AD will increase, and we expect to see an increase in the number of applications for new facilities across the country. With this in mind, the Poplar site will be a valuable facility going forward, and if you're minded to grant this permission, it will continue to serve both Staffordshire and the wider area into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right, now the local member is Samantha Thompson. She's not present, but she has given us a statement for me to read out. So if you'll bear with me. And it goes along the lines of, good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to pass my comments on via Kirsty on application CH 1309721. And although it would be ideal to see the site finished and restored fully, I realise this isn't always viable, and having spoken to my colleagues and also knowing that there were no resident comments on this in regards to this consultation which went out, then I don't feel I can refuse this application. However, I do have a concern for how the area will be managed when the landfill site is closed and restored within 19 years, as I believe this area will then become an area where the public can visit. So at that point, I'll throw it open to members for any comments. We'll start with Philip Hudson, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have no objections to this application. And then if we look at the positive things about it, it's about a greener environment. It's about how we dispose our waste, and rather than burying it, and the way in which Biffa will hopefully dispose of the food waste, I think is very positive, and I will support the application. I know that at district level, a lot of the councils know that in the next couple of years that we're going to have to allow food collections as well. Obviously in East Staffordshire we don't do that at the moment, so I think this very much sort of future-proofs how we dispose of our waste. And the other positive thing is at least we're generating electricity out of it, which is then going back, could go back into the local community, as they said. There's enough electricity to run Cannock, so, it's very, very positive. So I think this is a positive step forward at this time. Thank you.
Was there a proposal in that statement?
Yeah, yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm very happy to propose.
Paul, you indicated next.
David, thank you for your report. On this occasion, there's no buts. Before I start, I am in favour of it. But I've been involved with this really for the last 13 years. I've been a councillor in Cannock. As I say, it's on the other side of my division, the actual junction we broke the 4 divisions. Going back 13 years, there was complaints received almost every day. The actual manager of the site was different than it is today. There was heavy smells coming out from it all, and everything, of course, was blamed on the digester, even though a lot of it was perhaps coming from the landfill site itself. A lot of malicious complaints as well, I've got to be fair, were made, because every complaint in the site is recorded and actioned. It's not just some phone where everything is dealt with properly. As I say, this new management went into it. More digesters have been built over the years. One of the big complaints I was received was that methane smells. Well, methane doesn't smell. It's an odourless, clearless gas, really. That's why it can be a killer. But there's never been an issue with that. Everything is well tested. There's daily testing. 3 or 4 years ago, might have been 5 years ago, the Council Service Committee, we had a visit to the site, if you remember, and we went round in trucks and stuff and went all over the site. We had a couple of hours in the digester itself, and it was open, we smelt it, and it showed us really how well the site does work. The only issue I ever have with it is to dispose of the waste from the waste site. It goes by tractor and trailer all over the county to agricultural places, and a lot of the way it's driven is very, very poor. But that is not an issue for us, that is an issue for the police, as David said about the previous application. And I do tell residents to make, if you need to video these tractors the way they drive at very high speed, ignoring red lights, etc., it is a police matter. Let the police know, not put it on the staff's app. So really, there's not a lot I can really say. I'm in favour of it staying afterwards. You hardly know it's there as a local resident. I've got to be honest. At one stage, I was getting 3 or 4 complaints a week. Now I don't think I've had a complaint for 3 years. So that is how the site has changed, really. So if Councillor Hudson's proposing, I'll gladly second it.
Thank you. I've got Johnny McMahon and then Mike Sullivan, if you want to.
As the presenter made quite clear, this is the largest one in the West Midlands. We're, in terms of our commitment to net zero as a county and to dealing with the climate agenda, we've got a huge amount to do, and this is a significant contribution. You know, to be able to keep the lights on and to keep the heating on in the whole of Cannock and more is quite substantial, and therefore I'm hugely in favour of this. Notwithstanding Councillor Thompson's objection, but not objections so much as concerns about whether it outlives the landfill. We currently have an excellent relationship, as Paul made clear, with Biffa, and I expect that will continue. And in the light of that, I think it should run its course for as long as it needs to. So I'm hugely in favour of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I purposely didn't make a declaration of interest originally because I was involved as a local councillor in 2010, and I saw from the very first phase of it going in, the trials and tribulations, and the shock, I'm going to say, because the visibility of the original ones going in, did concern local residents across the road. But I do compliment, again, Biffa, because we had members' representation there on a regular basis, and we had open access to the management there. So they have been a very good tenant. The observation that I've got now is, and it is really about the visibility from the road frontage. Looking at the plans, it doesn't look like it's going to impact, but if you're living in the houses adjacent from upstairs, and I do share with you, my son's got a house there, and if I go to his back bedroom, I can see clearly into it. You can actually see it. So I am just mindful of the visibility aspect of it. But then equally, the increased vehicle movements, that is a critical entrance. Particularly now, we've got the road network now, particularly around that area, we've got the new designer outlet. More and more cars are coming. They are coping at the minute. And there's an estimate of around 3 million visitors going to that site, so it's directly on that junction. That's not to say they are all travelling by car, but at the moment, most of them are. We've got plans for the rail network to increase, but that's a decade away. So I am just, those are the 2 points. Will additional vehicle movements impact that junction? But also equally supportive of Biffa's application here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Carolyn.
Just a very quick one. You mentioned the decision hasn't been made yet or completed for the Section 106 agreement, but you was expecting that soon. Can you just assure me that, because I understand that's a very important legal document that you're waiting to be signed, can you assure me that's nearly complete? Or if not, is there a way to put that in as another condition, please?
Regarding the legal agreement, that's been dealt with by a colleague of mine, and I would expect that that can be finalised and agreed within the next 2 weeks or so. 2 to 3 weeks, probably.
I don't think there's any questions for the officers there unless you've picked up
Other than to say that obviously there's no increase in traffic generated by this facility, and I acknowledge there's a lot more traffic in the area, particularly the designer outlet and what have you, but this proposal won't change that in any way. But the key point with this application is it's to make the facility permanent, and I think that was the main reason we brought this to committee, because it's in the green belt and we want the committee to make that decision for it to be permanent. Previously, or currently, it's tied to the life of the landfill. So I think that's an important one, but I think the point that's been made and the point that recognised by officers, it's an important facility for the area, and that's why we, those are the things in favour of it.
Johnny.
This may not be within the gift of the committee, but it's just occurred to me, if we were to agree to it being permanent, can we say it's on condition of the fact that that BIFA follow the science, keep up with the technology, such that this remains a state-of-the-art facility as new technology comes on board? Because we want this to be the best it possibly can be, for obvious reasons. Maybe it's not our gift, I don't know.
I think I know the answer, but I'll give it to the officers, that one.
It isn't really in our gift, but what it is actually more of an Environment Agency requirement, best practical environmental option, I think it used to be called. I don't know, Mary, if it still is, but the Environment Agency are the ones to make sure the standards and the technology and the management side of it, that it's licensed by them, so permitted by them.
Okay, I've got, if I remember rightly, Philip Hudson has proposed that we accept the officer's recommendation, seconded by Councillor Snape. Could we have a show of hands, please? Okay. All right, thank you. So that's has been passed. I'm going to suggest we have a 5-minute comfort break to keep us alert. Back here at 15:15, and we're starting whether you're here or not. Okay, thank you for coming back at the allotted time, and we've all made it by the looks of things, so well done. And we'll go on to the last item on the applications for permission agenda, which is application 4C, and this is an application by Aggregate Industries UK Limited at Newbold Quarry, Concrete Products Factory, and that's at Barton under Needwood. And the application is to vary conditions 5, 6 and 7 of planning permission reference ES 2101501 MW following the temporary trial period to allow the Concrete Products Factory to continue to operate on a 24/7 basis and to allow bulk tanker deliveries to continue on Sundays and to allow the associated mobile plant to continue to operate at night. And I think, are you taking this one?
I am.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillors, good morning. As has been explained, this is an application to vary an existing application at Newbold Quarry and to make permanent 24-hour weekend operations following a 12-month trial period, which was permitted by this committee in December 2021. There's the general location plan. It's Newbold Quarry lies to the southwest of Burton, between Taton Hill, Dunstall, Barton under Needwood, and immediately to the west of the A38, as you can see there. And this aerial photograph, again, just to give you a better idea, you can see that the quarry site, a large site there, and then the factory is within the quarry site alongside other quarry plant here, the access to the quarry here, and there's an internal road that runs down to the factory and the plant site there, and then you've got the A38 running alongside here. The factory shares, so as I say, it shares the same access to the site off the A38 roundabout with the quarry and other ancillary operations that operate at the quarry. It's tied to the same legal agreement that requires the traffic to use the A38 except for local deliveries. So the proposals are to continue to allow the weekday 24-hour operations at weekends, to allow 3 bulk tanker deliveries on Sunday and public and bank holidays, and to continue to allow 2 items of mobile plant to operate outside at night at weekends. In terms of comments received in the applicant's case, though, the applicants explained that there's a high demand for the concrete block pavers, and they wish to maximise productivity of the factory by removing the downtime on a Saturday and Sunday. The applicant also contends that the noise monitoring during the trial period has demonstrated that the site can continue to operate at night, at weekends, without causing complaints. The additional hours mean that 7 additional staff can be employed in an extra shift. No other changes are proposed, and the applicant points out that the life of the factory is linked to the life of the quarry, which is currently 31st of December 2030, and is required to be removed as part of the restoration of the quarry. No technical consultees, including East Staffordshire Borough Council's planning and environmental protection officers, have raised concerns, and the local member has received no letters of complaint during the trial period. Barton under Needwood Parish Council commented that although they are not aware of any problems, they believe that the permission should be limited to 3 years, and asked for reassurance that the factory would cease when the quarry is worked out. No representations have been received from local residents. A site notice and a press notice were posted. The 35 neighbours previously notified were re-notified and have raised no representations on this application. As I've mentioned, Councillor Jessel, as local member, has confirmed that she has received no complaints about the factory during the trial. In terms of observations, I've considered 3 aspects here. The trial, the factory permission was first issued in 1988, varied in 2018, and more recently the trial period, which was allowed in January 2022. The factory already operates 24 hours per day, Monday to Friday, and has conditions to control noise, lighting and to limit the use of mobile plant outside after 7 p.m. The results of the noise monitoring during the trial period were submitted in support of the application and have been checked by the AHO at East Staffordshire, who has no objections. The second part of the considerations relate to the Parish Council's request for a temporary three-year permission. So that given that the trial period has confirmed that the factory can operate below background noise levels during the night at weekends, and there have been no records of complaint, it is considered neither reasonable nor necessary to limit the permission to 3 years. The parish also asked for confirmation that the factory would be limited to the life of the quarry, and as mentioned earlier, the permission is limited to the life of the quarry, and there's no reason to change that. The third consideration is the need to review and update the planning conditions. So as this is a Section 73 application to vary the conditions of the current plan of permission, it is also appropriate to review and update them where it is considered reasonable and necessary. Therefore, in addition to the changes to the operating hours as proposed, the tanker movements and the outside operation of plant, it is the only other recommendation is that the noise monitoring scheme that was previously approved for the trial period be incorporated into the new permission. So overall, it is concluded there is no clear or convincing reasons to indicate that planning permission should not be granted. So the recommendation on page 86 is that it should be permitted subject to the conditions as set out in the report, Chairman. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you very much. We've got one speaker, and that's in support of the application, Selina Gaskarth. Could you please come forwards? You have 5 minutes once you're settled and you've got the microphone on.
Good morning, Chair and members. My name is Selina Gaskarth from Heaton Planning. I'm the planning agent working on behalf of Aggregate Industries. For many years, the concrete products factory at Newbog Quarry has operated on a 24-hour basis during the week. But in January 2022, planning permission was granted to allow the factory to operate on a 24-hour basis, 7 days a week, for a 12-month trial period. During this trial period, noise monitoring was carried out to confirm whether the factory could operate on a 24/7 basis without giving rise to unacceptable noise levels at neighbouring properties and businesses. Noise monitoring was carried out on 7 occasions during the trial period and concluded that the dominant noise source at the nearest properties to the site was the nearby A38 road, even during the evening and nighttime periods. The noise monitoring reports concluded that noise associated with the operation of the factory on a 24/7 basis was not generally discernible above the road noise and was not giving rise to unacceptable noise levels. The Environmental Health Officer has also confirmed that there have been no records of nuisance complaints either during the 12-month trial period or the previous 7-year period. The 12-month trial period has now ended and the applicant wishes to extend the 24/7 working for the remaining life of the site, which is either until 31st of December 2030 or within 12 months of the cessation of mineral extraction at the quarry, whichever is sooner. This application also seeks permission for the use of up to 2 items of mobile plant outside during the evening periods and for up to 3 HGVs to enter the site on Sundays to deliver bulk cement powder. As has already been mentioned, the 24/7 working has allowed the factory to create a 4th shift which employs an extra 7 staff. 24/7 working also allows the factory to respond to increased demand for its products, which was difficult to achieve when the factory had to close over the weekend period and resulted in unacceptable delivery lead times. Concerns have been raised by Barton and Dunedwood Parish Council about the timescales for the 24/7 working, and I hope that this issue now has been clarified. The factory will cease to operate at the end of 2030 or within 1 year of mineral extraction ceasing. The concrete products factory operates to high environmental standards, and the factory is certified to the ISO 14001 environmental management system. Both the EMS and also the factory's approved noise monitoring scheme include documented complaints procedures which ensure that any complaints are promptly investigated and, where necessary, mitigation measures are put in place to ensure that the issue does not recur. The factory manager is responsible for ensuring that any complaints are properly investigated. Issues relating to the factory are also discussed at the Newbold Quarry liaison meetings, which provides a further opportunity for any issues or problems to be raised. In summary, we support the recommendation for approval of this planning application and respectfully ask the committee to grant permission subject to appropriate conditions. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Quite a simple one. Open it up to any questions or comments? Richard?
I think it's more of a comment because obviously I see there's no clear reasons for objection within the application. But I am a little bit concerned in the sense of the timing of it in terms of the lifespan of the works of 2030. And I know that probably what I'm about to say probably doesn't have an impact on the application, but it does in the context. With the announcement that HS2 is being stalled effectively for a period of 2 years on phase 2A, it makes me wonder whether actually we will receive an application to extend the lifespan of this quarry, assuming the materials are still there to be quarried.
And anyone else? No? There's a question for the officers there.
The quarry, as an existing permission, requires cessation by December 2030. I think the reality is they're ahead of schedule, the rate of output. There's also, worth bearing in mind, there's a quarry extension application currently in, but because they're already ahead of schedule, even that extension they can complete by 2030. They have permission to increase output to serve HS2, but that requires a sort of monitoring period because they wanted to increase the hours, and that was subject to a noise monitoring arrangements and trial period anyway. So yes, there is HS2 could have a bearing on the speed of output, but the quarry is already operating to a high level. Obviously, the vagaries of the economy can affect that, but that can affect the whole of the mineral industry. But generally speaking, at the moment, they're ahead of schedule in terms of output anyway. So 2030 is a reasonable proposition. It's worth adding that if, for any reason, like we've just dealt with the AD plant, the factory, if they wanted to make that a permanent facility, because it is next to another industrial estate, albeit it's within the quarry, currently the factory gets its supply of sand and gravel to make the concrete pavers from the quarry. I think the concern perhaps for the parish is that it could stay there, or they could import the sand and gravel and the factory could remain. That in a way would be a matter for the district, the borough, East Daffs Borough. At the end of the day, that would be a matter for them to make that decision at some future date if that was to happen. As things stand at the moment, it's ancillary to the quarry, and on that basis it's a county matter. To take it beyond that would then be a borough or district council matter. Okay, I hope that's of some help.
Philip?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. I can feel the proposal coming on again. We have to look at this in what we've got before us. So this factory has been operating during the trial period and there's been no problems. There are no concerns or anything raised by anybody. And if we look at it from an economic point of view, there's 7 more jobs there and 7 more people will be given employment. So I think that I would like to propose that we accept this variation in conditions. Thank you.
Thank you. Have we a seconder? Oh, Mike was first off those. And could we have a show of hands? Right, that's passed unanimously. We'll go along with recommendations. There's no exclusion of the public, I understand. That's right. So It's 11:30, and thank you all for attending and for a very well processed meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman.